Hello everyone and welcome to Hyperspace Deck Command, where today I'll be discussing commanders. Okay, real quick, I have made a little board to show the commanders. I don't know how to rename it, and I can't be bothered to fix it. And I'll be going through each commander and giving them a ranking from A to D, and if I think the commander is bad enough, it goes in the rework needed tier, because frankly, they're all fine, mostly, except for one who I'm currently looking directly at, but you can't see that. We'll get to him when we get to them. However, first off, we're starting off with the Glass Warden. Glass Warden is the commander you start the game with, and so it makes sense for them to be all around just fine. I mean, nothing to write home about. Their abilities, when you add them to a ship, whenever you heal them with a shield, you get 1 extra health free-ish. Yeah. So essentially amp just means you get an additional, or it speeds up you'll find out pretty easily. But yeah, the other 2 cards, or the 3 other cards they come with is the Micro Projector, which gives you 2 health, Keep in Mind Shields, and Hyper Shields, which are on this unit. Construct. Those can be pierced, but that's a bit rare, so don't even really worry about it. And the Light Effector, really good for buffing your units. Energize is a great buff. EMP sucks, frankly, if I'm gonna be honest, because many of the bosses and quite a few enemies come in with EM adaptation, which means after a little bit, they just don't care, and it will be completely ineffective. Now, I know there's like a energy destroyer that you can get this one, the heavy EM destroyer, which does an additional 4 damage when it hits something with EMP on it, even if it's not stopped. I mean, play into what you will if you want. And in the shield beacon, it's stationary, which kind of sucks, you can't really do anything with it, but it has 3 hyper shields, and what a hyper shield is it blocks infinite damage once. So it doesn't matter if you do 1 damage, you do infinite damage after instantly breaks. Hell, it can take 0 damage and break as well. As long as it gets hit with a card that does any amount of damage, it will break. And of course, there are some things that do pierce, such as radiation, or well, a piercing attack and instantly breaks, but that's just for all constructs. So where do I think Glass Warden fits on the tier list? Well, they're starting commander, they're very simple. I would say they're very good for getting a feel of the game from, and I think they're a solid B tier commander. Anything to write home about? No, but I think for a tutorial one, that's actually really good. Next up, we got Sleep Mage, who's gonna be our first A tier commander. Now, believe it or not, low tech, despite its, well, name, actually has the most A tiers of 2. So, don't think just because it's called low tech, oh, I want to use N tech because it sounds better. No, seriously, they have some really good buffs on them, and that's what really matters. Oh, and also technically the card pool and shift pool that they all come with, because there's a lot of stuff, some of the upgrade dongles, perks, okay, there's a lot, okay, I'll admit. But besides all of that, because we're just talking from more casual views, so you don't need to get super technical, although I will mention it. Sleep Mage is a fairly simple thing. They're constructs, just when it gets destroyed, it shocks the enemy, puts 2 MP, that's it. There's nothing more to say. Sleep Mage adds EM offense 5. This doesn't really make sense when you look at it like this, but essentially what it means is every time you apply a EM buff, or you get debuff, which is not recommended at all, you gain +1 permanent damage for that fight. Don't expect to see anything in here that goes between fights. That's very niche. I think there's only one thing in the game, and that would be this mega ship, the cargo terminal. But that's the mega ship category, so don't worry. But yes, essentially battery pusher only targets friendly units, and it will energize them twice, which means their turn counter advances 2 instantly, and then takes an additional 1 unless the card is rapid. So, you know, if they're at 3 turns remaining, just put a battery pusher, and they'll fire. He'll even put an extra damage. Pretty good stuff. But the EM Seekers, I think, would normally, how you'd think to use something that does 1 damage, suck. They're horrible. So why do I say he's A tier? Well, if you look here, it can also energize, which implies that it can hit your cards. And yes, I am directly stating to basically shoot yourself in the foot. Now, I know it does 1 damage, and you'd probably rather not attack a weaker unit with this, but that would give them +1 damage, and they'll also shoot sooner. You basically have 3 battery pushers as long as you don't mind taking a bit of a scratch. Considering he comes from the low tech, which is about shields, EM, and AM, he's actually pretty good, because you start with healing, basically. And this right here, the Matter Destroyer, pairs very well with it. You fire more often, you inflict, take an additional damage on the enemy. It goes twice, which means, you know, you get, you know, use 2 battery pushers or seekers or whatever. You're now doing 3 damage twice and ramping damage. Very good build. Highly would recommend. So yeah, that's why I think Sleep Mage is in the A tier. And same, as I've already mentioned earlier, goes to Shiv God. I would put them slightly higher though. Now, Shiv God, their thing is very similar, just inflicts, take an additional damage on the attacker. What they do, they don't really apply any fancy pants buffs, they just flat 2 AM, so +2 damage, but also you take an additional 1 damage every time you're hit. Might sound bad, but if you mix it with something like the Light Destroyer, which has 3 health, yeah, it means if you get hit for 2 damage or hit twice, you lose that ship and commander, and, well, if you start using these modifiers, instantly loses the game. However, right? However, that's not really a big deal, because you should have a tank unit in front with like 8 health hit points. And to which, it doesn't even matter that the one behind it is weaker. Just make sure you don't get hit by scatter, make sure scrambles aren't going to be a problem, and it's completely fine. And the reason why this is good, and, you know, applying extra is great, and you have an option with these, right? Because technically you don't have to play Shiv God immediately. You could just start shooting yourself with these and get +1 damage every time you do. Just Shiv God turns these into a 2 damage strike, so it's a little less desirable. A lot to play around, frankly. But I found that Shiv God pairs perfectly with the Persecutor class. And I'm happy I caught myself this time, because it's the second round and I forgot to show things. The Persecutor class is a ship which has 3 hulls, so, you know, glass cannon, does 1 damage and shoots 3 times with no effect. Why it's good though is it has 3 actions, which means this gets multiplied by 3. And so even just Shiv God makes that 3 damage, that's 9 damage total. And when I was doing 22 damage a hit onto the enemies, you better believe that was a very quick win. And, you know, so stuff here, 1 damage, apply AM, works on the enemies too. It's not battery pusher, it works on the enemies. Shiv God, right here, and the combat projector, very simple, 1 energize, 1 health. Doesn't get more simple than this, really. Overall, a very strong commander, and like I said, they go in A tier. Next faction would be the trade unit with Razzle Dazzle, or Dazzle Vector. Why do I call them Razzle Dazzle? Anyways, they do a lot. They apply 1 AM, 6 flares, and 2 overdrive. So obviously now I have a lot to talk about, right? We've already mentioned AM's just +1 damage. Now, flares are kinda like EM, like EMP on your ships towards the enemies. By that, if the enemy's about to act on you, the flares will stop their attack, unless they have adaptation to EM things. So essentially, it only EMPs them if they're at 1 and they try to attack that ship. So it's more situational. Also, at the end of a turn, you blow a flare for no reason, really. And then 2 Overdrive is another mechanic, which is very powerful. Essentially, and their fuel extraction is another great card. Overdrive just makes you advance 2 turns at once, which can give you the elusive, rapid, you go before the enemies, which technically is not exclusive. You can do this with EM as well, but essentially fuel extractor, you get rid of the crate that's furthest right, so in this case it would be glitter container. If you had a blank container here, it would use that instead. Essentially it just means the closest to the right of your hand, it plays that container. So, you know, it destroys it temporarily. It will come back in your next hand unless it's a temporary item, I think. But yeah, just overall, very good. Becomes debuffed even if it has. Really? I didn't know that would actually turn into a debuff. I've never even had that happen to me, so don't worry too much about that. Unless, very niche case. AM container, self-explanatory what this does. Glitter, I've already mentioned. This gives flares. Chaff is different, which is to say it's the exact same thing. However, it's on the enemies. It does not. Well, I mean, it goes down regardless of 1 by the end of the turn, and if the enemy gets affected, they just won't shoot. So it's technically more economical than flares, but flares can stop multiple enemies, which is why they can be good. So if you have 2 ships that want to attack, flares stops both, chaff stops 1. And also, if it gets hit by an EM, like an EMP, it becomes EMP, which is neat. And this just gives you flares every cover. Where do I think Dazzle Vector goes? I would honestly say they're an A-tier commander. I want to have at least an A-tier in every faction that can have one. And frankly, Dazzle Vector, I'm just gonna say they're simple. They're a very simple commander, but I would say they're an A tier, just because the buffs they give are very powerful, and they are most certainly asking you to play around containers, which, you know, not many commanders in the game do. And I think I keep forgetting to mention, maybe not forgetting, but the cargo decoy gives you 2 blank containers that are temporary when it's destroyed. So, you know, once this gets destroyed, 2 blanks, they're temporary, which is they're created by units, but they're also destroyed when you exit combat. And if you shoot one at the enemy or fuel extractor them, they go away as well. So, kind of plays into the fuel extractor of this cargo decoy. Very good overall. Next up, probably should be an A, but I'm going to put them in B because they're a lot more finicky, would be the Blaze Runner. As a commander, they give flank speed 2. What's this mean? It means once your timer advances to 1, and if you skip 1 by any means, they just don't do their action that spin, so, you know, try to always hit 1. And they apply 2 Overdrive. So that basically means, what they call it flank, is now you're going to go before the enemies, and you're going to get 1 additional thing of moving 2 at once. So you play them onto a card that has, you know, a round counter of 3. That means you're going to go every 2 rounds and go before the enemies. Or just overall, it speeds up your fleets by at least, you know, 1 turn. Overall, they're pretty good. If the target has Overdrive or Cascade, the traffic control high, well, if it has, it applies crit. Precision targeting or target lock. It's just depending if you play it on yourself or the enemies. Overall, it's pretty good. You have a ship that does 5 damage, plop this on, it now does 10. Very quick, very easy. The rental fuel jumper, I'm not a huge fan of anything that costs, you know, money. Even though I think you get way too much in this game. Well, not too much. First shop, you don't have very much. You can only get one thing normally. And then by the end of the game, you can just blow tons of, you know, SRM. It doesn't matter. But essentially, it just applies 3 overdrive. Very simple. Fuel container hits you, hits enemies, overdrive, or cascade. Cascade is a simple thing where over 3 turns, they take X amount of damage. So if you have 1 cascade, that's 1 damage for 3 turns. You have, you know, 9 cascade, you now take 9 damage for 3 turns. And, as you can see here, you take the damage and lose the amount of crew equal to the amount of stacks. Do note, however, crew will basically immediately put out the fire, so if you do want to use Cascade a lot, and there is a auxiliary ship for it, make sure they don't have crew, because the crew will instantly get rid of it. Pretty annoying. And you have Festival of Lights. It just applies chaff or flares, preferably chaff, because normally the reason why flares is better is because it technically is pseudo-scattered. This is just straight up scatter. This is a bit better. And I think I forgot to mention one thing about Dazzle Vector. Do be careful, because all cargo containers technically do damage. Now, 0 is not very much damage. If you have a card, when hit gives an effect, it will trigger that. But do note, if you have the ability that makes all strikes do +1 damage, all your containers are going to do +1 damage. Anti-synergy, be aware. View data. It's a box. Incredible. But yeah, I personally think, you know, Blaze Runner, bit on the complicated side, not really. They're fine. I wouldn't exactly say they're the best card, but B seems about fair. Because overall, they're solid, but not fantastic, if that makes sense. And for our next commander, is Kill Director. Okay, so they're interesting. They're the one of only 2 commanders that mess with your turn speed on your ships, so it literally increases your max turns. So if it has 4, now it's 5, 3, now it's 4. So it's a bit unique, and since it's a blue, technically you can increase that. I would not do that. However, it also gives you a permanent multi-actions. Now if you do 1, you go twice. If you do 3, you now go 4 times. So just sort of multi-action. However, you take a bit longer, but you know, going 4 and only attacking once, or going 5 and attacking twice, pretty much always going to be a positive. I have no problem with them. I forgot to mention that this just sets the attacker on fire. It's self-explanatory though. Their construct is the Combat Refiner, which gives you 6 on action. However, it's degrading, which is to say that at first it gives you 6, then 5, down to 0, and then you can destroy it or whatever, and it's on a 4 timer. Simple enough. I don't really like protecting it. I'm lazy. Underway with refueling, which, well, self-explanatory. The range limit of 1 means you can only go in inner orbit. However, it does apply 3 overdrive, only targets allies, and has the range limit of 1. And yes, this will go down to 0, and no, it's technically not a depletable card, so it will stay in your deck until the next battle, where it will then restock fully. And also ships that have increased by 1 max, once you finish the battle, this just gets reset, so no, you can't get like infinite multi-action. Boy, that would be fun though, although it would take you forever to shoot. I guess that's why this is a faction with overdrive, right? A blank container, for if you get anything that wants a blank container. The lure projector have a love-hate relationship, because yes, doing twice the damage is nice, but no, I don't want them to immediately advance one orbit. You're literally asking them to come closer, and unless you really play into that, I'd rather not. I think Glitter Seekers, it doesn't do any damage by the start, but it just applies 3 flares or chaff. Simple stuff. Now, where do I think their ranking goes? Multi-action is very strong. Very, very strong. But their cards and Refiner, part of me wants to say D tier. And I think I will give them D tier. It's not that they're a bad commander. Their ability is great. They just don't have the other stuff to make it good. So, are they bad? They're hard to play into, and they don't really make it easy. But oh boy, we're on to the next commander. This impotent child. Plate Investor. Oh boy. This kid is a handful. Now I say kid because I'm talking about how they have a childish, bratty attitude to them. Which is, they literally just play Descent. If you don't play them as soon as they're in your deck, they just chuck one of these in for the rest of the fight. You can't play them, you can't get rid of the card. It's literally just slowing it down. And yes, adding 1 heavy armor, that technically could be increased if you play something on the card. Heavy armor just reduces damage to 1 if it's higher than, or no. Essentially, it reduces damage, so 2 becomes 1, 5 becomes 4, 1 stays 1, and 0 stays 0. But just the fact that if you don't immediately play them is annoying, and Stubborn is almost as bad. They will never retreat. So when I'm about to go throw a CVG, you know, the card which fires a bunch of missiles and does 6 damage to every card but your mega ship on the board, having them sit there and phase tank 5 damage and then immediately get destroyed by the enemies just was not a good experience. Stubborn sucks. Only 1 heavy armor doesn't feel worth it, and the fact that if you don't immediately play them, they make a permanent penalty card for that fight. It's ridiculous. It's childish. And speaking of childish, they literally choose to bring their toys. These do literally nothing, and the only way to make them useful is if you get scrapper robots to rip these apart. It's basically permanent engine degradation, which is something the game gives you to make it harder. I don't see why this commander of all needs a penalty card in their hand. Otherwise, you have the Fleet Polarizer, which will add +1 health to every unit in the orbit, scatter obviously, or 1 max health, or +1 or -1 max health. Which I personally would say, armor is the best ability, especially for healing, in the entire game. However, scatter means you can't target a specific card, so your tank is going to share with one in the back, which sounds fine, right? Or just use it on the enemies. But wait, there's more. Then there's the Instructor class. What this ship does is it makes your ship do +1 damage. However, the target suffers scrambled. So yeah, not only it scrambles your card. Oh yes, okay, I was having trouble reading that. Technically, if you get a card, and I'm gonna back that up because I keep saying it. I don't know if I can. There it is. The Burner Compodorum, however you say that. It gives you +2 effect power, only target's hand, or alternatively, you just use anything in here that would provide you with optimization. I'll get to those later. But if you optimize it, you can do +more damage. However, the Instructor class is unique it gives you +1 damage, goes twice, but it also hits you twice. And now you're saying, well, that does 2 damage. Heavy armor, no, it's multi-action, so heavy armor wouldn't stop it. So it's just straight up take 2 damage. And also now it's scrambled, which I forgot about. So now you don't even know what card it's gonna hit. Or no, wait, no, it's somehow worse. It doesn't add scramble, it is just straight up scrambled. It doesn't care if you want to hit your tank or the card you're trying. It's just gonna hit whatever. Which I guess kinda works with this Fleet Polarizer, but if you're gonna be ramping damage, you typically want to choose the card. And unless you put them on another orbit, this won't do that. Also, it hits them for a total of 2 damage. And you're thinking, well, scrambled sounds rough, but I put my tank in medium orbit, I put this on inner orbit. Should be fine, right? Well, now you're not using the Fleet Polarizer, so like, okay, well, I'll just put it on my tank and it'll be fine. But no, like you could, but then it's hard to heal, and then you also have the Disruption Cannon, which doesn't even target friendly units. It just applies 2 EMP to the enemies, which is mediocre at best. It's not unique. Sleep Mage has a card that does this, and it's far more useful. It can even hit yourself, which is great. Instructor class just sucks, and having scrambled on it's just annoying, because there's no way to predict it. Why? This is too varied and awful. I hate every single aspect of this commander by a lot. Rework it. It sucks. Oh, and for reference, not only is this a commander that you have to unlock the rest of the faction with, which is what I consider to be the best faction in the game, but also this is a commander about armor. He's all about adding and removing armor. He even does heavy armor. Not relevant. Actually detrimental at times. Literally useless. I mean, it's even called unnecessary. And has so many problems with him. Why? So let's stop looking at this commander. Oh, and also their construct. Takes 8 rounds, but as long as it doesn't get hit, which is kind of what you use constructs for, it will do a total of 6 damage, and it immediately self-destruct. It only hits enemies, by the way. The payoff is extremely slow, so yeah, you could technically buff it with EM, but just no to all of it. But time for a very good commander. What I would straight up to be considering probably the best commander in the entire game. How ironic that it's directly underneath the worst. Now, I'll admit, both of the mine ships, or like, things from this faction, it's for this one, which is just play like 24 rounds with this faction. I will admit, they're hard to unlock, but they're so worth it. The Mind Decoy, basically has retaliation of 2 if it gets shot. The enemy takes 2 damage, basically no matter what, because defense mines, and offense mines in particular, are broken, and either with defense go at the same time as the enemy, or offense, which goes before the enemy. And if it kills them, they just stop. They don't even have to shoot you to die from it. It's incredibly busted. And yeah, mines are really crazy. But I'll talk more about them because, well, we're on the commander for it. And on the Meg. And on the auxiliary. Anyways. Mind Decoy, very simple, but good. Spike Wizard, what a great card. It adds +1 max health because, well, to be fair, the card's gonna get shot a lot. That's kind of the whole thing about mines. But it also applies 1 mine, simple enough, and then it adds a Minekeeper. Is it super necessary? It's funny. So your mine buff on a unit just doesn't go down, ever. For any reason. It stays. So yes, I get to the final boss with 23 mines on it. The boss shoots me once, takes 23 damage. And every subsequent time it shoots me, it takes that much. very, very, very powerful. I've had an entire fleet of ships shoot and die. There's no retaliation ships in this game, which do nearly 23 damage, not without some insane buffs. Super powerful. Next up, Outdated Arms Factory. I'd actually typically scrap this card. It gives you a mine, and it also lets you take in additional damage. Can be played on the enemies, which I didn't realize. But, you know, gives you +1 damage, or take 1 damage for the enemies. Mines or offense mines. It does create a system error, which, believe it or not, unlike, you know, the other guy, you can actually get this one out of your deck. It's just annoying too. And of course it goes away on the next combat encounter, unlike unnecessary luxuries. Outdated Arms Factories, I just don't like playing it. The system error is annoying to me, especially when there's other stuff being so good, such as the Repeated Polarizer. It gives you 2 max health over 2 actions. Now yes, this does mean that one ship that gets +1 damage whenever you don't play a weapons card is going to get +2. However, well, if you somehow find a way to double its effect power, now you're giving 4 health. Also, why not put EM, so now you do +2 Energize or EMP, or maybe put some staff, like some crew cards, so now you also gain +2, security or borders, and yeah, this card's a little insane. It's extremely good for giving yourself a lot of buffs. Overall, probably one of my favorite healing cards in the entire game. And again, this is max health, so piercing doesn't matter, it makes it harder to be boarded. Overall, incredibly powerful. Minefield Displacer is, get this, mediocre. It just puts mines on all of your ships, from the ships that will never be in combat, to your mine ship, to your tank ship, because this tanky faction, I wouldn't even blame you for that. Because you can have your mine ship ramping up, and then your tank ship covering it, and after that, when it's weak, just swap them around and then you win. Mine Displacer? It's fine. And the Repeated Spire goes twice, because why not? Has a range limit of 1, however, so only inner to solar orbits, because it can also EMP things on solar orbits. And it just applies, it applies energy twice. Now, I thought this originally had scatter. That would make it really broken. But it's just a 2 energy strike with a range limit of 1. Most of your combats, most of your ships are going to be on inner orbit anyways. And then enemies as well can get targeted. It's not a big penalty on that. So, overall, yeah, Repeated Spire, very good. And this commander pairs perfectly with the Refueling Hub Mega Ship. And also with the Innovator class Nano, or Inventor class. That was a fun game. You should do that combination. I'm just gonna say it. Very, very good. And this would normally go S rank, but it sounds silly. So I'm putting them in A. Most certainly deserves this position. Wow. They're a very good commander. But next up, we're on to what I would probably consider to be a B class. Not because, they're bad, but because, dude, you're competing with Spike Wizard. It's already a losing battle. Overall, they're actually really, really strong. So, heck, A tier if you really want to say it, I wouldn't blame you. They have a funny construct, which is a caustic decoy. When they're shot, and if they don't get hacked or EMP'd, they'll just crash into the enemy and explode, which is admittedly kind of funny to watch. Oh, and also it just decreases their max health by 3. Which has another bonus of borders, which is what they deal with. And, well, borders are based off of the max HP, which is why increasing it's even more powerful, yet removing it with Armor Strip makes it easier to board. So technically this card gives you 3 borders, or 1 security, and 2 extra max HP, and yes, it heals 2 as well. Combat Engineers, great card. The Irregulars being unscrambled, they're just not reliable, so I'm not a huge fan. up to you. Demo squad +1 damage, or they take an additional damage. It's fun. And EM commandos, well, can you believe it? You get 2 security and 2 energized. Great way to energize your ships. And, well, now onto the Commander Grunt Breeder, which apparently is not the worst name he's received, which that's up to him to declare. What they can do is they apply 6 security, and they also add Legend. The Legend buff just means, if you have friendlies, final stack. Oh yeah, so even if you go under the requirement, it doesn't matter. And also, they don't trigger infighting reactions. What does this mean? Well, this is the only commander in the game to be able to be applied onto enemies, which is where you're supposed to target. And keep in mind, Scatter and I think Scrambled will still shoot the commanders, so be careful of those, as per usual. But essentially, it just means that ship's now permanently on your side, and the no infighting means the other ships won't kill it. Yes, you permanently claim that ship for the rest of the battle. Really good stuff. And if you get something that gives, typically +2 health to all enemy units on their turn, well, now that just turned into -2 max health for every unit on the enemy per turn. That was a fun one. Overall, Grunt Breeder, solid commander. I would not blame you for saying A, but then again, we're competing with Spike Wizards, so, But I would definitely put them high B tier. Absolutely. Next up, we have that commander, it's probably good as hell that I don't know their name off the top of my head. They're called Wing Scout. Now, Wing Scout's interesting. They have Helper Brood, which applies to repair bots, in my opinion, the worst form of healing in the entire game. Not because I just straight up think that repair bots are just not good. They're fine, but it only heals 1 health after every round. So, depending on if they're on the ship or not. So you can say it properly, Cosmic. You can get multiple you can add multiple, but that's just how many. I guess I can't say it properly. Short and simple is you put this on a ship. If there's 2 at the end of that round, it will heal +1. It will heal 1 health, and there will still be 1 left. There we go, now I said it. For the enemies, you get Salvager bots, which essentially, I don't fully understand, which I know sounds a bit dumb. They're kind of weird to use. Essentially, it's when you shoot the enemy, they heal you, and if your ship applies them to the enemy, or you have Hull Ripper bots, they instantly trigger and give you all of it as well. They're interesting. I don't really understand them, and that's being compared to just increasing your max HP, which makes it harder to board and gives you health, and means when you get back from repairs you get more. It's really powerful. One funny thing about that is technically it makes the ship harder to board if you increase its max health. So does that just mean it's adding more stations that the invaders need to control? And then by that logic, are you physically increasing the size of the ship with every time you add more armor? And then armor strip, does that mean you're physically shrinking the ship down and removing stations until it gets to the point where it literally cannot exist and just disappears? I want clarification, because that's funny to me. Anyways, AM Dart. Honestly, fantastic card. Only hits front, that's fine. It applies 2 AM Seated, which is pretty powerful, and only targets enemies. Overall, I have no problem with it, frankly. And SW Operatives, it has a Fighter Strafe, which, I'm gonna be honest, Fighter Strafes kinda suck against enemies, because all they do is 1 damage, and, if anything stops the enemy from, acting, they'll get shot down 1 by 1. They do not protect the bomber target, like, you know, applied, like, bomber strafes. And, you could have 5,800 of these on the enemy. They'll take 1 damage per turn, even though they're all firing machine guns. I just think it's a bit weird. But since this does energizing, the timer won't go down. Frankly, I think it's better on your own ships because fighter escorts, they're useful. It means if you get a bomber on you, they just get removed, no penalty, right? As in, they won't hit you. And it does replace point defense, though, so you can only get rid of 1. It's a niche detail. But if you have the point defense, it will help you defend. Bombers just do not get rid of fighter escorts. Strafers do get rid of fighter escorts, and they do it instantly. But bombers don't. So, a great way to stop yourself from getting bombed by that one boss, like from any of the bosses that apply bomber strafes, and even fighter strafes it gets rid of, very useful, plus energize is good. Now, the commander gives you 5 fighter escorts, which is, you know, good for defense, obviously, but, yeah. And control, which increases all effects by 1 from counting down. I'm gonna be honest though. Oh, actually, I know what this does. Essentially, controller means for the next 10 rounds, if your ship wants to deploy, let's say 2 bombers, it now deploys 3. But it's temporary. I think it's fine. It took me a long time to figure out what that did. And I'm not saying this commander is just bad. I've won the game with them, and one of my favorite mega ships. They're good. They're fine. Their construct's also kind of mediocre. It has 1 escort on it, and it will gain +2 every 4 rounds. And when it dies, it puts the fire strafes on the enemies. They're mediocre. It's not even solid. They're just mediocre. Have I won with them? Yes. Are they technically to a degree defensive? Yes. Would I really say they're that good? Their cards are fine. They open you up to a more interesting tree. I do personally think the floatoid tree is hit or miss. Some of the cards are really, really good, while some of them are really, really bad. Honestly, I think double action is worth C tier alone, even if their cards suck. Although, trade union alone is kind of icky. You know, I'll keep my stance. I'll keep my stance. They're not a bad card. They're just not a good card. Hence mediocre. However, moving on. We get the A tier of this faction. Yeah, that's right. The Flock Nemesis. They're interesting. They give you +1 damage, which, believe it or not, I never ever use because effect power. Oh boy. Adding +1 effect power, this goes for anything. It's very good, but I like to pair them with the Squadron Planning, which adds 1 effect power, but only targets cards which give fighters stuff, or bomber stuff. If you can believe it, this launch plank that gives itself, you know, 2 bombers per 4 rounds, well, they're pretty interesting. I'm not sure I'm not showing these here. Essentially, they gain 2 bomber escorts every 4 rounds and have 5 health. You add both of these, now it does 4, keep adding these, and now you're at like 7. It's at, and then you see the counter at 4, well, this thing applies 3, and sure it does 1 damage, but just click and drag this on here. Now it throws out another 7, now you have like 24, the boss has 20 health. Very, very, very powerful launch plank paired with this commander, even though we're losing out on this entirely. It's a very good combo, and ammunition printer. I normally scrap it. essentially what this does is it's a delayed AM, which is to say, it produces this card in your hand, the round goes, and then you can apply AM. It's just delayed. Not to say it's bad, it can do more in my mind. However, if you scrap it, like I've said, they're a solid A tier. I see nothing wrong with them. And now we're on to a very interesting commander, at least in my opinion. Because you know how his repair bots are really pretty bad? Well, this is Steel Medic. They're fidgety, but they make repair bots really good. Because every time you don't play them, instead of being, well, a brat and causing problems, they just get, well, better. Yeah, they just gain efficiency in that fight. So what bot efficiency does is it means every time you use a repair bot, does this also go for salvager bots? No. But yeah, essentially, if you have a repair bot and an efficiency of 1, now you heal 2 health. So what if you just don't play them until like 3 rounds in? Now you have 3 bot efficiency. Yeah, now each bot repairs 4 health every round. Which technically means Steel Medic is the best form of healing in the game. However, you have to just keep drawing them and cycling them for your deck, so they're impractical. But hey, I had it set up once, very, very powerful. And the accompanying bot litter that just adds 3 repair bots. You know, nice and simple. Here's a really fun card that I really wish I could use more often. I wish there was like a little thing that you could, like a dongle you could put on that said, this card appears, like there's a 50-50 chance of you drawing this card when you shuffle your hand. Because when you have like a full deck, you're not going to see this ever again, which sucks. But if you can make it so it always appears in your next hand, which would probably be extremely broken if you think about it. Gunner implants, or planter bots, very fun. It makes you do 1 additional damage, you take 2 damage, but you also get 2 repair bots, and technically optimization would work on this. Now, unlike, well, the Plate Investor, because I think Steel Medic's just what they should have been, basically, instead of that, what this does is it does 2 damage, adds +1 damage that you deal, but also 2 repair bots, because they're not just about to start ripping hull off to put more guns in. No, they're going to do that, and then they're going to put the hull back on. Because, they care. They're Steel Medic after all, so why wouldn't they? So ironically, Steel Medic does what the Plate Investor wants to do, but somehow better. Incredible. And the Salvage EMP device has a bonus action. Notice how this is yellow. It's impermanent, which means it gives a double action and then only single action. It's scrambled, but then again Energizer EMP on any orbit. It's fine. I don't mind. So where would I rank them? Admittedly, they're more of, well, a medic, and they give access to an okay tree of cards. I don't have anything directly against them, but I wouldn't say they're, superb, right? Honestly, B tier, you can make them work, but if you want to use the implanters, you can't draw cards. But at the same time, if you don't mind not using that, I mean, their whole thing relies on a small deck, which there are better cards to make work with that. I don't want to say they're a bad commander, they're niche, and I think they're fun. Next up, though, is Data World. An N-Tech commander, and I have opinions about N-Techs. Data World, overall, simple. They have another amp, and like Shield, it gives you, in this case, +3. So, Oh, I didn't even realize this. They can go into constructs. Interesting, I didn't even know they had construct compatibility. I thought there was only one card that did that. You learn something new every day. But yeah, no, their whole shtick, Do be careful. If the construct dies, they die. But essentially, when you try to, use system feelers or tactical effector, you're just going to get an additional 3 optimization. What optimization does is just means every one of your effects is increased by 1. And there's a really good card in my opinion, which is this one right here, Inspiration. So since it has a 4 timer and it applies 4 optimization, it basically means you're permanently going to have +1 effect power. In general, I think that's pretty good. And then, we have this one, we know what EM does, we know what optimization does. Hacked is interesting. If they don't have any optimization to tick down, they just instantly get hacked. And if they're hacked, 0 effect power across the board. Sometimes it hits heavy armor. There is one downside of hacked, which is if the unit wants to self-destruct, hacking them removes their desire to self-destruct and gives them a will to live. That, I don't know about. That one sounds like a bug. But, especially considering stationary doesn't get removed, it's a bit wonky. But, overall, pretty decent stuff. Integrations, however, is interesting. Now, besides requiring you to put like 12 of those on, I think 11 of those on one ship for the Meg, and I remember that clearly because that's really hard to do in one fight, and actually required me to cheese it by, get this, hacking them. Which I wonder if that's actually the intended method, considering he's the hacking guy. Yeah, OS Evolver just makes optimizations more potent, you get inspiration. For all this is some pretty good stuff on this guy, I'm not gonna lie. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna be honest. Was I sharing my game? Nope, I was not sharing my... I had a feeling something was wrong. Alright. Adds amp, adds construct, OS Evolver. Incredible, it goes from Windows 11 to 10. Or Linux. Amazing. Yeah, there's my stance if you're curious. Good stuff. Let me show off inspiration. A card I do quite like. That's not inspiration, this is inspiration. It doesn't do any attack, it just gives it to allies. Fun stuff, right? Overall, I was gonna say, they're not that good. Honestly, like, they're fine. A tier, relatively speaking. The pool it gives you access to as well is pretty strong as well. Would I go out of my way to use Data World though? B tier. They're fine. That's why they're B tier. They're only, they're good, but I'm not out of my way. Next up we have a commander who makes me sad. Peace Planet. I want to love this commander, guys, please. Make Peace Planet not just a joke commander. What I mean by this is their whole thing is they're just the construct guy. They apply Hypershield, they prefer constructs to add evolve. What's evolving? Well, evolve took me a moment, but essentially, when your construct, like this decoy turret, gets destroyed, preferably add the construct overcharger, which adds mass produced. And he's like, oh, you're my new favorite construct. Oh, how sweet. Apparently you can say that multiple times in a round. He has... They're all his favorite construct. That's just the truth. I love mouse. That's just the truth of the matter. It adds a hyper shield, and it adds mass produced to constructs. Essentially, when he dies, he doesn't give you the game over with that commander phase. Yes, if you put mass produce on the construct, this mind, containment or whatever, it just straight up gets disabled for some reason. I don't know why, but well, I know why. It's fun though. And evolving, well, the next time this construct shows up, it will have 2 hyper shields and 2 damage, and then 3 of each, then 4. There's no limit to that, by the way. So, yeah, it's pretty fun, I won't lie. And then you have the signal tree, which is just optimizing your hacking, scatter. The electron laser, which has piercing. which means it one-shots constructs, because it does 1 damage, but it would give 3 energize or 3 EMP, depending if you don't hit a construct. Right? Now keep in mind it's hard to roll that construct, any construct really. And yes, he will stay on the construct after death, so, you know, you do want to roll the same construct, it's not up to your extent. Considering there's things like, where is it? Yes. Compassion is avenging, goes 3 times. When your ship dies, it attacks, which includes constructs. Downside, you need to keep rolling into the construct, which kinda is not easy. However, I kinda like Regret as well. It gains +1 damage when a ally, more accurately a construct, takes 1 damage. Very fun. Also, one thing about mass produced, you lose 1 hyper shield, or take 1 well, you take 1 damage every time. I'm not sure about shields, because you can't put normal shields on after, or during it, then we'll go to that afterwards, but with hyper shield, every time this finishes its unit counter with mass produce, it loses 1. Simple as that. And also because you can N-Tech Printer adds +1 damage, adds Pierce. If a unit dies, it gets reset, or if the round ends. So no, you can't put this on here and just have a permanent +1 plus Pierce. Gotta be reapplying it. But no, N-Tech Printer, it's pretty fun. I like it. And the reason why I really want this commander to get buffed is because they're just not good. And I get sad by that. Because here's the thing. Constructs are incredibly rare to roll, and most of them, frankly, aren't great. Right? Now, the N-Tech ones have funny ones. Defense Orb is just, the glass wooden one, but can move. Oh, and also since it's mass produced, it will wear out. You have the Decoy Turret, which we've already looked over. Sync Turret's funny. Sorts of 3 does 3. And it's an assisting thing, so once 1 unit shoots, it shoots, takes a shield damage. Overall, it's just funny. However, actually I think syncs even work if the units behind them. So you can put this on the front, would be fun. The combination I would love is to get the disposable railgun. Because it's just, it's just the decoy turret, except it does 6 damage by stock. I'm not sure if it removes the mass-produced cards from the pool. Because I'm gonna be honest, I've never seen this with him. I've never seen this with him. I've never seen this with him. And I'm not sure why. I'm not even seeing this with him. And that would just be a straight upgrade. But the rest I have. But the problem with him, which makes me sad, is just these constructs are just insanely rare. Like, they just don't like spawning on any faction or any commander. To which, like, sure, here's a great one, but this doesn't really get benefited from him. Right, but there's definitely, like, yeah, no, not many of these be too good. Maybe this, I guess. Yeah, this would be fine. It's stationary, though. I mean, there's not a lot of good constructs. Like, I could just click on this. Oh, on an enemy action, it just adds a salvaging bot. That's whatever applies to behind it. That's commander one, so I won't count that one. What else is there? What about this one? On death, apply 4 to all allies. Okay, that's pretty good. I won't lie. Convert cargo container into a random one with rapid. Incredible, it just keeps swapping them out. What is it? Create a random card. Not really. Because it makes random things. But overall, for what Peace Planet does for a construct, they're what I would say, and I'm putting this in the rework class, not because I think they're bad. Well, I mean, I do. They can be better. And what I would say to rework them is just when you go to an N-Tech specifically ship point where you can get a new ship, have a button to switch it to constructs only, which gets rid of one option, lists 2 N-Tech constructs to choose between, or scrap it for 5 SRM. So essentially, you can really play into having a ton of constructs, because then this construct overcharger becomes really fun. Just give us constructs if Peace Planet can do his job. This whole thing's about not even wanting to hire like new ships anyways, so give him the option to just be like, but we could just use constructs. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe the disposable railgun would be as broken as I know it would be, but he needs to be reworked. I feel bad putting him near the child. I want to see him reworked. Otherwise, I would say probably C tier, like maybe D, but I want him reworked. Give him the constructs he so desires, because he deserves them. And on to our final commander for this video, which has been going for over an hour now. I didn't think I had this much to say, honestly. But final commander is this guy, Death Glimmer. He's a fun one. I like mixing him with integrity. And essentially, he has Decay Amp. Oh, and also he makes it act a turn faster. So yeah, you see this? 3. Actually, just becomes 2. And also it inflicts 4 radiation with Pierce. And the reason why I say this is so funny is because he gives Amp. Now you're probably wondering, if you know anything about radiation, which I've not described yet. Radiation, decreases their max, hull by 1, and 1 crew, at the cost of the crew removing 2 at once. I never explained crew, did I? Oops. Essentially, security will remove an additional 1 every round, seemingly instantly removing fires, as it is. But yeah, they have a instant debuff when they're not fighting with boarders, and if there's too many boarders on a ship, it switches teams. Simple stuff, probably really should have mentioned that earlier. But essentially, it will kill security, lower its max HP, and then, you know, you ignore shields, it also lowers max HP. Pretty good. However, you know, does amp just increase it by 1? No, it's funnier. It just uses them all at once. And there's no penalty to this. So if you mix these two together, you apply 4 radiation every 2 rounds, and then immediately use all 4 radiation. And since it goes between rounds, all of their crew, they're going to lose 4 security immediately from that. Essentially just instant decay. Just mass destruction. Extremely fun. You put this on, that's an additional 3. One of these, it's an additional 1 plus EMP. I guess you could also use this on your own cards. Very fun. And what about Cost Rise? Cost Rise is instant. Instantly removes mines. No, but also there's only 1 faction at the beginning of the game, so, you know, mine stacking ain't too useful. Also, that's only defense mines, mind you. It removes strafe or bomber aircrafts, which, I mean, if you need to get rid of them, or you have no point defense, it's fine. Then you have the gets rid of borders, which is kind of funny. And it also, it's equal to how many? So this would remove 3 mines, and it would hit all of these at once. So it's pretty good. It's like the anti-thing, but you have to use it on yourself. Meltdown rounds are interesting. It decreases your max health by 1 after your turn, but then again, it's just an instant 3 energize. Not bad. If you ask me, Tactical Seeker's generic. Yeah, I'm sure you can figure out what this does now, after I've yammered on for ages. But overall, very fun. Oh, and also you just have a straight up nuke as your construct. And do be careful with this one, because if you have another ship up here, they're going to get irradiated too. However, nuke. They're fun. And I have won the game with them 3 times. And they don't have ramping damage, they just have such a high damage, like, output, that they're able to compensate for having a low, like, no ramping. Because typically, you're only going to win. You'll only win this game if you have something that does ramping damage, or hits really hard and frequently, or, you know, more ramping, hits frequently, like ramping, but when the enemies attack, you want ramping badly. if like all my A tiers, yeah, I never switched the screen. Whoopsie daisy. I've been talking for a bit. Integrity. They have. I can't believe this actually decreases it. So yes, this means if they do one for 5 rounds and a multi-action, it's every 4 rounds and they keep the multi-action. Incredible idea. It's like the other one, but technically not as good. And some of their other stuff as well. Some of the descriptions on these. When I said you can probably interpret what this does, now you can. However, switching back there for the last time in this video, right? For the last time, overall, fun. I'm putting them in B to be fun. This should be a lot higher for how I said I would rank it. They don't do ramping, but if you look up here, a lot of these do ramping. Spike Wizard ramping. Very strong. And those containers, they're basically doing the same thing. And admittedly, the lack of ramping doesn't make the ones that rate lower. Otherwise, I'd actually put them in A tier. They're fun. I won't lie. Should it be Data World? Probably. But they're fun. And I'll be honest about that. So here's the final tier list. I want Peace Planet higher. And I want Plate Investor to do his damn job and not complain the entire time. Well, either doing or not doing it. He is annoying, and somehow Steel Medic does what he tries to do without even doing what he does. Incredible. Some of the balancing in this game. Now the game has been balanced quite a fair amount. Something that got better. I know this Meg, Justice, very fun mega ship. The poor Strikes got nerfed, but that's for the mega ship thing, and that is coming out. There's no flagships because well, these are scrambled. Last time I was in here, there was nothing here with Retaliate. I don't think these engines play. Yeah, there's nothing with AM. You can have AM. Anyways, that's gonna be it for this one. Stay tuned because soon will be the mega ship one at the auxiliary. And believe it or not, I have another 2 hours of things to talk about. I'm going in detail. I've played this game a lot. So yeah, take care and I'll see you around. I would not combat these together at all. Incredible. Oh, I was just clicking buttons. You couldn't even see. Incredible. I'm gonna clear this board and clean it now. I need water. I need water going into this now. I really needed to spend an hour by accident. Oh boy.